Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and how is everybody doing out there? Happy Memorial Day weekend. I'm pretty sure everybody is getting ready for the barbecues, the cookouts, the going to the beaches, and preparing for summer. Kids are out of school, vacations are being planned. It's a joyous time of the year. It is a very exciting time of the year that we get to do some traveling or whatever the case may be. This year, for me personally, I have zero planned. Normally, me and the family will do something over the summer, but which we probably will, but we have nothing on the docket. There's no plans to go anywhere this summer. It's been a lot going on. My oldest daughter just graduated from college and got a graduation party that is kicking off in a couple of days. And, it's just been a lot going on with that. My other daughter, she's entering her final year of college, and we're preparing for that. So there's a lot going on, to say the least. And so I'm just here with you. It's me and you for right now, but we'll see how the summer plays out. Who knows? I may take a trip somewhere. We'll wait and see. But this summer, as far as the summer movie season is concerned, even though it kind of kicked off at the beginning of May with Fall Guy, and we had Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and unfortunately, a couple of those movies that has come out in May didn't do too well. I was kind of disappointed on how the Fall Guy turned out. I was really hyped up for Fall Guy, and I liked Fall Guy. I didn't love it, but I liked it a lot. And it's already on digital. It's already available to watch at home. Just that quick. Man, gone are the days of a movie being in a theater for months, to kind of get some traction, to kind of get some word of mouth and things of that nature. Those are over. After the first and second weekend, it doesn't make any money. Off to the streaming services it goes. But it's been kind of a slow start. But I think we're revving up, no pun intended, for the real deal of the summer movie season beginning this weekend with the release of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, which is a spinoff or a prequel, a spinoff of the Mad Max films. And I am excited for this movie, just like I was excited for the Fall Guy, but I'm excited for this movie as well, especially after the, I think, borderline masterpiece of Mad Max Fury Road, which came from George Miller, who is returning to direct this film, Furiosa. I absolutely loved Mad Max Fury Road, and I guess I spoiled it already because that's our review. That's our film for today that we're going to review at the end of this show. And so you already know how my feelings are for it, but it is what it is. I absolutely love that movie. And to get a prequel to that and still be set in this Mad Max universe, I think we're in for a treat. That film stars Anya Taylor Joy, who is taking over for Charlize Theron, playing a younger Furiosa in this film. I was kind of like, when they first announced it, I was like, really? Anya Taylor Joy? I was like, I don't see her as an action star, but it was a time I didn't see Charlize Theron as an action star, and many other women that have dipped their toe into the action genre. And it really got my head spinning on female action heroes, female action movie stars. And throughout time, we have gotten some really, really good female action heroes in a genre that is male dominant. You have your Schwarzeneggers, you have your Stallones, your Bruce Willises, Wesley Snipes, and the list goes on and on. We have gotten some real machismo when it came to the action movie genre. But at the same time, we have also been sprinkled with some amazing female heroines in the action movie genre. And I just wanted to dive in to a few of them, and talk a little bit about the female action star or the action hero, if you will, and shine a light on them in honor of the release of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Now, the action movie genre goes back all the way to the early 1900s. I think the first film that they actually classified as a action movie was The Great Train Robbery, which came out in 1903. And that was considered the first action film. So it's safe to say that the genre has been around for a little while. It's been around a minute, but in spite of that, it's safe to say after 120 years or so, it still is dominated by men. It's a male dominated part of cinema. In the majority of these action films, especially in the era where I grew up in the 80s and 90s and so on, even in the 70s, you can say, the females in these action films were more damsel in distress. They were plot devices. They were the the lady who needed to be rescued by our hero from the clutches of the villain. That was their role, and they still have films like that. It has its place. I'm not knocking those movies because I love those movies. Even now I love those movies, but times are a changing. There are, not every woman is a ditzy, oh God save me woman now. There are women that's more take charge than men, and it needs to be showcased on film. Now, not just now. This goes back, and we got examples of that in the 70s and the 80s. Going back to the 70s, we got Pam Grier, Foxy Brown. In the 80s, we got Lieutenant Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, and so on and so forth. We got female action heroes, but it was so few and far between. And so today, we're going to touch in on a few of them. Not going to rank them per se, but we're going to discuss some of the best female action heroes, in my humble opinion, throughout cinema history. Starting off with one that I've mentioned already, Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise. I absolutely adore this character. And when this film came out, the first time I ever saw Alien, well, actually, I saw Aliens first. I saw them out of order. I saw Aliens first, and then I saw Alien. Because I was wondering what was the big hype about Aliens when that came out. Mind you, I was, 7 when Aliens came out? And so I didn't know. And Alien came out the year I was born, or I think in 1979. So of course I didn't see it when it came out, but I did see the first one. I mean the second one first, and it never dawned on me then. I always thought it was normal for a woman to be a lead in an action movie. Like I said, I was a little kid, and so I never looked at it like that. But now, when I didn't realize it now, but I'm just saying, when I got older and I started really getting into film, really studying cinema, it was a impactful role for so many reasons. Number one, the reason I felt it was normal is because it fit the story. It fit the story for this woman to be so commanding and powerful in these roles, in these films. The first two. I'm not gonna really touch in on Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection and so on and so forth. But the first two, it fit, and to know that Ellen Ripley was originally written for a man. So this wasn't like the screenwriters and Ridley Scott, who directed the first Alien, was trying to be innovative, was trying to, break this glass ceiling. it just so happened to happen this way. It was originally written for a man, but Sigourney Weaver impressed, and it worked. One of the most iconic things about Ripley was in Aliens, which was directed by James Cameron, when you had space marines get picked off by these aliens one by one, just ran through them, and you have this woman standing tall and uh coming out triumphant over these aliens. Awesome, man. Powerful. I think that's one of the most powerful uh female characters in film history. Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise is one of the most iconic female action heroes in cinema. Our next example of a female action hero is a character that is both examples that I was talking about earlier. The damsel in distress and the hero, all wrapped up in one and done beautifully by Linda Hamilton. Yes, Sarah Connor from the Terminator franchise. This was a tour de force, if you will, for this character. For her to go from the damsel in distress for, I would say, 80% of the Terminator in 1984 and completely flipped it on its head in 1991 with Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Same character, but two different characters at the same time. This was a transformation that nobody saw coming. When they did Terminator 2 and the promotion for it, and you pretty much knew from the trailers and stuff back then that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be the good guy this time. And you're like, okay, that's going to be all right. It's good. Let's see how we going to have a good guy Terminator and all this other good stuff. And then to watch this movie and see Sarah Connor be a beast. I mean, a pure beast in this movie. She was the Terminator. She turned into the Terminator in human form. I loved Linda Hamilton's portrayal of this character in both films. I even loved her in Dark Fate. I know that gets hated on a lot, that film, but I actually like Dark Fate. That's probably the only Terminator sequel that I enjoyed since T2. Now, is it up to par with T2? No, but it is a serviceable sequel to those two films. The other ones, Salvation and Rise of the Machines and Genesis and all, they can keep those. And in Genesis, where we had who that was, Sarah Clark, Emily Clark, from Game of Thrones portrayed Sarah Connor. Wasn't the same. Was not the same. It was Linda Hamilton's portrayal of Sarah Connor that sticks out to me. That is, well, I mean, she's the originator. This is her baby. She knew the part. Arguably always had been a bit ahead of her time. No pun intended. Making the perfect protagonist of this film. I mean, when I talk about the first Terminator, how she was the damsel of distress for 90% of that film, the final act of that film, she turns into a action hero. Yeah, she was the one being saved by Kyle Reese for the majority of that film, but once, spoilers, Kyle Reese dies, she turns into the action hero against this Terminator who's crawling after her in this lab or whatever it is. I don't know, the mechanic shop. I don't know what that thing. I still don't know after 40 years, but it was cool regardless. And she is the one who vanquished the Terminator, and showed her grit, showed her strength, and all this here at the end. That was a precursor to everything. Now, I did see the Terminator before I saw Alien, and so I guess that's part of the reason why when I saw the Ripley character in Alien, I wasn't like shocked and surprised by that, because I have seen a female action hero earlier in this film. But to put it on steroids in T2, and Sarah Connor just was a animal in this movie, but at the same time keep her femininity, if I'm saying it right, in her sexiness and her womanness still there, you know. It wasn't like she was just butched out or anything like that, but she was a woman you just didn't mess with. And she is one of the best female action heroes in cinema. And so let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to 1974. And this is very important in so many ways, not just for females, but for black females. Foxy Brown, portrayed by the great Pam Grier. And this was a celebration of black exploitation films. Once again, a film that I saw later on in life. I think I was a teenager when I saw it, and oh boy, a teenage Kevin watching Foxy Brown was a very, very interesting viewing experience. But let's just say Foxy Brown was on my mind for a very long time. Or should I say Pam Grier stayed on my mind for a very, very long time. In this film, she plays an escort, a high price escort who seeks revenge for the murder of her boyfriend by mobsters, and she goes on this revenge tour. And the film was what it was. I mean, it's a black exploitation film. It wasn't going to win any Oscars or anything, anything like that. Before that, Pam Grier, she played in another film, Coffee, I believe, or was Coffee after? They were around the same time. But she was in these films and um really made her stamp, made her mark as this black female action hero. She pretty much was the first. She pioneered the black female action hero. Now, as much as we're here to celebrate the female action hero, it is a little scarce. The black female action hero is even worse. It's not it's not too many black female action heroes working in Hollywood. There's no movies to really depict that as much as we get the white counterparts, female action heroes. Now, granted, we don't get many of those. So, I'm not sitting here going, oh man, oh, white people get more of those, but no, the white women don't get that many either. And so it's nothing against the. I don't think this is a race thing. They just don't make these. But all of these films that I'm about to go through today shows, man, they are good. It's not like they're bad movies. Even Foxy Brown and Coffee, they were good for that era, for that genre, for black exploitation. Those were good films. And because of films like Foxy Brown and Coffee, Pam Grier is a cultural icon. Even to this day, the woman still work. I believe. I think I seen it in something recently, or it could have been an old movie that I saw for the first time. I saw it recently. I mean, she's still working, and it's because she got her start in films like this. This is where she cut her teeth in these action movie roles, and she later on played these kind of action movie roles later on in life. Jackie Brown, and I think Escape from L.A. Movies like that. There's other examples. I'm blanking on them, but she kept her, I guess, toe, not a whole foot, but her toe in the action movie genre. If it isn't so much of as a supporting role, she was still hovering around the action movie genre. So yes, I cannot. I'll be doing a disservice if I didn't include Pam Grier's performance as Foxy Brown on this list of female action heroes. The next name on this list, it shouldn't be a shock. This was a name that nobody saw coming from a lot of angles. You know what I'm saying? You didn't expect Quentin Tarantino to direct a film like this, and you didn't expect Uma Thurman to portray a character like this at that time in 2003. And it is none other than the bride from Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. or is it part one, part two? I don't know if it's volume or parts. Either way, the Kill Bill films. Uh, Quentin Tarantino, you used to his ultra violent, kind of a exploitation homage film, and this is also to a degree, but Kill Bill was this samurai, even anime thrown in there, just very Japanese inspired type film with this female lead, this assassin, you know, going on this tear once again, going on a revenge tour, and you understood the revenge tour and who she was going up against. As bad as she was going up against people worse than her. And Uma Thurman, man, I often wondered after this film why Uma Thurman didn't do more action movies. I always scratched my head about that. I'm like, man, she can handle it. Clearly, she can handle it. This was an amazing, amazing feat. These two films, this masterpiece, dare I say, from Quentin Tarantino. I mean, not only Uma Thurman in this film, you had Lucy Liu, you had Vivica A. Fox, you had Daryl Hannah, the mermaid from Splash. I did not I did not think that I would see these women in these type of roles. This is a film that you would normally see men, in these roles, portraying these characters. But once again, it was flipped on its head. And the movie's so good, you don't care if they were male, female, it didn't matter, because the story was good, the acting was good, and the action was amazing. Yes, Uma Thurman as the bride. And I think Uma Thurman kind of dropped the ball, even though she did work after. She did some really good films after, but I think she should have tried more action movies, I'm not saying, be Keanu Reeves and dive on a bus or nothing like that, but just try some action movies to capitalize on the success of Kill Bill. And in another kind of damsel in distress turned hero role, and you probably can say this was the originator of it all. It was none other than Princess Leia. Yeah, I could not put this list together and not throw in Carrie Fisher, the late great Carrie Fisher, in her portrayal of Leia Organa in the Star Wars films. Now, there are a lot of great female characters in the Star Wars franchise as of late. Well, we have Ahsoka, we have Rey, there's some really good female characters in the Star Wars franchise. But Carrie Fisher's Leia is the first and the most beloved in pop culture. People still, or women still dress up as Princess Leia for Comic-Con and other kinky stuff around the house. I mean, that is a mainstay in pop culture, the character of Princess Leia. And in the franchise, Leia undergoes a lot of character development and embraces the best version of herself and becomes a wiser, more impactful leader in these films. Yes, in the first Star Wars, the original Star Wars, A New Hope, she was the damsel in distress. She was the princess, but she was spunky. She wasn't, oh, please save me. It comes on like that with the message. Please save me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. After that, there was pretty much no begging for help. It was, don't mess with Leia. Leia was just spunky, man. I love that character. I mean, millions of people. It's really not much I can say to that character other than the fact it is, or she is the groundbreaking, glass ceiling, shattering character in all of cinema. She is not your typical damsel in distress. And as the film series went on, she became more of a hero. She became more of an impactful character, even though she always was. It wasn't like she was a recurring character who turned into a serious regular in episode 3 or the third film or whatever. No, she was impactful throughout, but in different ways. You know, we got her start in the New Hope. We got her love story, her falling in love with Han Solo and Empire, and then her being a fighter in Return of the Jedi. It was just amazing to see her on that journey. My only knock on the character, which isn't Carrie Fisher's fault, of course, it was how that character ended up. You know, not that it was demise, it was the promise of something that we didn't get. Because Luke always said that his sister was more powerful than him, and we never got to see that. We never got to see that in any of the sequel trilogy or anything like that. I know she passed away during the filming of the sequel trilogy, her being Carrie Fisher, of course, but you know, we never got to see her use the Force. I think we saw it in, oh man, I forgot where we saw it, but it was in a flashback for like a scene. It wasn't even a scene; it was like a half a scene. And it was like that was it. That was it, and we still didn't see how powerful she was, but we did get to see her use the Force, or when she turned into Mary Poppins, when she floated out in space and floated back to the ship, and you know, we were supposed to buy that. But anyways, love the character. One of the best female action heroes in cinema was, of course, Princess Leia, portrayed by Carrie Fisher. My next entry on this list is a no-brainer. This was probably the first name that came up, the first character I thought of when I said I'm gonna put a list together. And this character was so impactful, and it still is to this day. Even though, even though I absolutely hated the last installment of this franchise and what they did to her character in that franchise, I still loved her. And I still loved how that character was portrayed by Carrie Ann Moss, who, I mean, gave every young boy, young man, still to this day, just one of the biggest crushes on the God's green earth. I still have a crush on Carrie Ann Moss from this movie. Every time I watch something else that she's in, I immediately stop. I don't care what the movie is because I love her because of her portrayal of Trinity in the Matrix films. I just I love her. I fell in love with her. I understand Keanu Reeves. I understand Neo. Yes, I would fall in love with her too. She was a beast, but she was a woman. You know, it wasn't. She wasn't disguising it. She wasn't trying to fit in. She was just a beast of with who she was. You know, and I loved the way this character was written. You know, and I'm just gonna focus on the first Matrix because I feel that's the superior of over all the ensuing sequels. Even though you know, there are good scenes in those films, but the films themselves are kind of eh. But I absolutely love the first Matrix, like everybody else. That's why it spawned such a huge franchise. But that film opened with Trinity. It opened with Carrie Ann Moss kicking butt, floating in the air, doing a scissor kick or a crane kick, whatever it was, and you know, all of the acrobatic kung fu fighting that she did, but was still sexy, still beautiful, still feminine at the same time. God, I love that character. I love that character, and I love the action. I loved how much you didn't mess with Trinity. Even more so, I guess I have to refer to this last film in the franchise, The Matrix Resurrections. They basically based that movie around her character, you know, because that's how important her character was. I get it, but the execution was horrible. But you know, I understand why they did it. Even then, and that was what almost. Well, it wasn't almost. It was 20 something years since the original, and Carrie Ann Moss still was a beast. She still uh crushing the hearts of young men and old men alike. But yes, man, Trinity. If it wasn't for a couple of scenes in the third act, involving the character Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, who does some just amazing stuff in those scenes, you can argue that Trinity stole this movie. The character stole this movie with all she was doing, how her story progressed. You know, she was really the only character with development, with an arc. You know, yeah, Neo had an arc, but it was it was your typical action hero arc. But Trinity, on the other hand, had a different arc, and it was more complex. It was more matters of the heart as well as the mind, of course. And so it was a good journey to go on with Trinity. Yeah, it was fun to see Neo dodge bullets and, you know, flips and do somersaults and fight Lawrence Fishburne and all this other stuff. But her journey was amazing. And along that journey, she kicked butt. And it was awesome. That's why Trinity, portrayed in The Matrix by Carrie Ann Moss, lands on the list of best female action heroes in cinema history. And I just realized that I've changed the name of this list 4 times. Because I'm like, wait, I never said that before. And I don't even know why I said that. But yes, whatever. But this is the list of female action heroes. Whether it's the best or whatever, it don't matter. But this is the list. This is my list of the female. In my best. So, yeah, Trinity lands on that list. As we getting close to this list, whatever the name of it is, I can't go any further. What you know, I've been holding her off since the beginning, but I wanted to. I'm trying to save the best for last without saying these are the best. But this character, this film, you could probably say this film is one of my greatest guilty pleasures. Even though I feel it's a great movie, I know a lot of people look at it as a guilty pleasure, but I loved it. And I still love it. I watch it whenever it comes on the DVD, on the Blu-ray. I've owned this movie since it came out on VHS, people, and I'm obsessed with the lead character in this film, the female in this film, Charlie Baltimore. Do I need to say any more? The Long Kiss Goodnight. Charlie Baltimore is portrayed by Gina Davis in this film. This film was directed by Rennie Hudlin, and I think they were married at the time. Rennie Hudlin and Gina Davis didn't last too much longer after that, but they were married at the time. But anywho's, yes, The Long Kiss Goodnight. I remember this being somewhat of a big deal back in 1996 because Gina Davis, she wasn't too far removed from winning an Academy Award. She had not too long won an Academy Award, and she's doing this action movie, you know, as this secret agent and whatnot. And you're like, okay, why? Gina Davis, once again, another one. I couldn't see it, could not picture it. I couldn't make myself picture it in my mind, and I didn't go see it in the theaters. This movie, I think, if memory serves, this movie came out on the exact same day as the Ghost in the Darkness. I could be off on that, but I'm pretty sure because I remember the box office weekend wrap up where both of them were trying to claim that they were the #1 movie in the country, in the world, or whatever, and they were both off by like $100,000 from each other or something like that. It was craziness around that, and that's when I really got into box office numbers, was because of The Long Kiss Goodnight and The Ghost in the Darkness. And I enjoyed The Ghost in the Darkness. I loved it, and so I didn't get around to seeing The Long Kiss Goodnight until it came out on VHS. And in case all of you young folks don't know what VHS is, It's a videotape, you know, that you put in a VCR and you had to play it. And I rented it and immediately took it back so I wouldn't get charged and bought it the same day. Because this movie was amazing. The character of Charlie Baltimore is amazing. That character is so fire of a character. A rapper, a female rapper from Baltimore, changed her name to Charlie Baltimore. that's how that's how much of a beast Charlie Baltimore was. That character to this day is one of the best amnesia, getting your memory back, because around this time you got a lot of that. Secret agents lost their memory, like a Jason Bourne type thing. But this was more outlandish in a way. The film was written by Shane Black. Shane Black, he wrote the Lethal Weapon films. He wrote did he write Predator? No, he was in Predator. But he wrote a lot of really good action films from the 80s and 90s. And Rennie Hudlin, who gave us Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, films like that. I mean, man, this was a match made in heaven. This movie is amazing because of the chemistry between Gina Davis and Samuel L. Jackson. This was one of the first times got to see Samuel L. Jackson in an action movie, which was weird that he was playing second fiddle to a woman. Now, I did, and I'm fully admitting, I thought it was weird that the woman was getting the lead over a male. And it wasn't because of anything sexist. It was just unusual. Despite the fact that there was female action heroes or female stars leading movies, of course, but they just always put the male lead ahead of the female. It wasn't because I was being sexist. It's because they conditioned me to look at it that way. And so when this film did the opposite, I took notice. And when you watch the film, you understand why. Because it turned the genre and flipped it. You heard me mention about the damsel in distress. Well, Samuel L. Jackson was the damsel in distress in this movie. And it was beautiful. It was beautifully done. Samuel L. Jackson is probably one of his funniest roles ever, man. I loved him in this movie. This movie just broke the ground for a lot of that. Going back to the Jason Bourne films, like I said before, I think without The Long Kiss Goodnight, we probably don't get Jason Bourne. I know that's a large leap in logic, but I really believe that because this amnesia secret hero, or not hero, but secret agent thing, getting their memory back and all of a sudden snapping necks and doing all type of stuff, killing people with spoons and all this other that started with this. I loved Gina Davis in it. She was a beast. She was a beast in this movie. Still holds up. I believe I watched it. Came on TV, just randomly on TV, and of course I stopped and watched it. I want to say 2-3 months ago, and it still had me excited. I loved it. Yes, Gina Davis' portrayal of Charlie Baltimore in The Long Kiss Goodnight, one of the best female action heroes in cinema history. Now, I could have cheated. I could have went the superhero route, and there's a lot of those, but I really don't count those as action heroes. That's male or female. I look at them in their own subgenre. Superhero films, comic book films. I could have went Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot. I could have went Zoe Saldana as Gamora in the Guardians films. I could have went Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow and all this other stuff. I felt that would have been cheap, even though I fully acknowledge them all for the work they do, and they do excellent work in that genre. But as far as action movies, I wanted to focus more on pure action. not the comic book aspect of it all, the fantastical aspect of it all. And my final name on this list, I mean, we're going to review the film, and so I might as well talk about the character for a second. And it is none other than Charlize Theron's portrayal of Furiosa in the 2015 action masterpiece Mad Max Fury Road. Once again, Charlize Theron. Now, at this point, I think she had done Atomic Blonde, or was that app? I think she had done Atomic Blonde, but didn't really see her as an action star. She tried it a little earlier in Eon Flux, and that movie was bad. That was not a good movie. And so I said, well, she tried. She tried. It wasn't her fault. It was just a bad movie, you know. And so I never really pictured her in an action movie, especially of this caliber. And so when Mad Max Fury Road came out, it's a Mad Max film. So I really wasn't expecting much from her character. I thought maybe she was more of a supporting. Really, I knew she wasn't going to be a damsel in distress. Oh, save me, Max. No, I didn't think that, but I wasn't expecting her to steal the movie. Yet she stole the movie. And this is a character who was, for 90% of the film, was behind the wheel of a semi truck in the middle of a desert. And so it wasn't like she was jumping off buildings and all this. It didn't need to be. It didn't need to be. But she carried this movie. She literally drove this movie forward. And boy, I mean, just ripped the movie from poor Tom Hardy. I felt so bad. When I walked out the theater, I was first elated by this film, but my heart bled a little bit for Tom Hardy. I'm like, oh man, they messed over you, dog. Charlize Theron got you. I don't know if it was her fault or George Miller's fault. I don't know, but she got you, bro. This is her movie, and it's proof positive now because instead of moving forward with another Mad Max film, we're getting a Furiosa film. And so coming out this weekend. So that lets you know all you need to know about the character of Furiosa and the portrayal of that character by Charlize Theron. Awesome, awesome performance. And hey, I was tiptoeing around it because I'm going to talk more fully about it in the review, but those are my actresses and characters that I have deemed some of the best female action stars, heroes in cinema. They are pioneers in a lot of ways. They are trendsetters in a lot of ways. They have, out-muscled men in this man-driven genre in so many ways. Is amazing what these women have done. And other women, that I didn't list. These are just some of the best, but there are a lot more female action hero stars that have graced the silver screen and encapsulated millions around the world for so many years. I didn't mention Michelle Yeoh. I didn't mention Cynthia Rothrock. I didn't mention Mila Jovovich, Michelle Rodriguez, Angelina Jolie, even, Kate Beckinsale. There's so many. The list goes on and on and on. And kudos to those women. Great job by those women. Continue to push these men. Continue to push them to do better, because they go out here and really do the heavy lifting and make us men look pathetic as they do it. And they look beautiful doing it. We of course look ugly in everything we do, but they look beautiful while they're doing it, and they do a beautiful job at it. And so let's get into the review that we have in store for today. Of course, in honor of the release of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, which is currently in theaters, we're reviewing the 2015 apocalyptic action masterpiece from the madman himself, George Miller, Mad Max, Fury Road. This film stars Tom Hardy, who is taking over for Mel Gibson in the role of Mad Max. Of course, we have Charlize Theron in this film. We have Nicholas Hoult in this movie, Zoe Kravitz as well. This movie was a 2 hour plus car chase. That's it. It wasn't anything to reinvent the wheel, but yet it reinvented the reel. This movie did so many innovative things. It told a story without much dialogue. You can probably count on two hands collectively how much dialogue is in this movie. It's not that much dialogue, at least coming from Tom Hardy. I researched it and I had it written down somewhere, and I was tearing up stuff trying to find it, but I couldn't find it because I knew exactly how many lines of dialogue he had, and it wasn't much. Of course, I spoke more today on this show than he did in that entire movie, but it's neither here or there. I think he had the least lines of dialogue of any character in that movie, and he was the star of that movie. But this is, of course, from the mind of George Miller, who directed the previous 4 installments in the Mad Max franchise, and this movie took a long time to get off the ground. It took a long time. I think George Miller tried to first produce this film back in 1987, right after Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, but they just couldn't get it off the ground. They could not get it off the ground. And then so much happened after that when it was starting to gain a little steam. You had 9/11 took place. You had the Iraq War take place. You had the controversy surrounding Mel Gibson with his tirades, should I say. It was just so much, and they just couldn't get it off the ground. And so George Miller, he decided, okay, I'm gonna try this one more time, and if it don't work this time, that's it. I'm done with it. You know, they decided that they were going to recast Mel Gibson. Well, it was a collective thing. They were on the same page there because Mel Gibson at that point had gotten too old to play the role, and he did. You know, as much as I don't agree with what Mel Gibson did or was saying in his video, I still like Mel Gibson for some strange reason. But you know, I just don't agree with what he said. I can still like you and still think you're an idiot at the same time, but that's neither here nor there. But it was time to move on from Mel Gibson, and a lot of actors auditioned for the role, lobbied for the role, and eventually it went to Tom Hardy. And I thought that was perfect because he was like, Tom Hardy reminds me of a young Mel Gibson, and some of the roles he's played and things of that nature. I love Tom Hardy, except when he plays Venom. But those movies make buku money for some strange reason. But anywho's, I remember the trailer dropping at Comic-Con the year prior, and it was so much buzz about it. Then they released it online because, of course, I wasn't at Comic-Con, and they released it online, and I watched it, and tears flew out of my eyes because I was moved by that trailer. I was amazed by that trailer. That trailer was so impactful to me that I still watch that trailer to this day. Occasionally I go on YouTube and I pull it up and watch it. And I've seen the movie a million times. I watch it and I get hyped up, and then I go and watch the movie again. You know, that trailer was just bananas, crazy, mad, no pun intended, and perfectly set the tone for this film. You knew exactly what this movie was all about. I know that if you watch the trailer, you probably won't know what it's all about, and you don't really, and that's the point. You know, it's just pure madness. It's insanity, and you, for some strange reason, you want to see this train wreck. You want to see these car crashes, literally. You know, you want to see this madness. And the movie is pure madness. It is like a journey through the mind of a mentally unstable person. And that's my best description of Mad Max Fury Road. All the other Mad Max films were movies. Those are, they were great. I loved them. I loved them. I even love Beyond Thunderdome, even though I think that is the most hated on of all of the Mad Max films for good reasons, but I just have a special place in my heart with it. You know, I think that was the first Mad Max film I watched, and I went back and watched the other two, and so I watched that out of order as well. I watched a lot of films out of order due to my placement here on this earth, and so I had to, the timing of everything. So I had to watch things kind of in reverse. But that was the first one I watched, and this was such a different film, especially since Beyond Thunderdome was PG-13. Um, Now the previous two films were R, but they went PG-13 for Beyond Thunderdome, and this was a return to the R-rated Mad Max films. And boy, this was crazy. This movie was nuts. You know, um, my only knocks on this movie was the character of Max, was Tom Hardy's portrayal, because you could tell throughout the film, that it looked like not mad. It looked like Tom Hardy just didn't want to be there. And the reason behind all that is because Tom Hardy and George Miller did not get along while filming this film. He felt that, George Miller was not really directing him, wasn't really guiding him as a character, as an actor trying to find his motivations and stuff like that. And it was driving him insane. And George Miller was doing that on purpose because he wanted that character to be like that. And the character was like that. But they didn't get along during filming. Who also didn't get along with Tom Hardy during filming was Charlize Theron, who they almost got into fist fights. It got to the point where they stopped speaking to each other, even though they were in scenes together. Majority of this movie was those two in the truck together, but they weren't speaking to each other. They hated each other during filming. Now, once filming wrapped up and Tom Hardy saw the movie and he got it. Once he saw the movie, it clicked and he got it. And he publicly has apologized about that. And him and George Miller, they cool now, I thought that was very honorable of him to do that, because a lot of people would be like, oh, well, whatever, what's done is done. But he didn't, I respect that. He also apologized to Charlize Theron, and it was back and forth with him, both of them were going at, throwing jabs at each other. So they both kind of mended the fence with one another. And I thought that was cool. But throughout the film, you could tell, in certain scenes, you can see the disdain. But it does fit the movie because the way the characters are in the movie, they aren't supposed to like each other. So it came off very authentic because it was. It was very authentic. And it worked. But it was just the look on his face. I know that look. I know the look because I've had that look towards certain people. So I can recognize it very clearly. Of course, Charlize Theron, I mentioned it earlier, that she stole this movie. She stole this movie. The power of her character, the reserve of her character, and then that final confrontation at the end with her and Immortal Joe with that epic line, "Remember me." Oh my God, man. that was fire. The other characters throughout this film were also good. Another kind of a scene stealer was Nicholas Hoult in this movie. Nicholas Hoult really almost stole this movie. I really enjoyed him in this film. His character goes on an arc, a really interesting arc throughout this film, from where we first meet that character to where he ultimately ends in this in this film. It was beautiful, yet tragic and but it redeemable at the same time. And I loved that character. The action, some of the best action you ever going to see on screen. Some of the most epic car chases, car battles, shootouts ever, man. This, if you've listened to this show long enough, and I thank you for doing that, for supporting this show, you know that I am a huge supporter of practical effects. I love CGI for when CGI is necessary, but I love practical effects because it draws you into the film more. It feels like you there. You feel the punches, you feel the falls, you feel the flips, you feel the explosions, you feel it. You know, when it's CGI, you just know it's empty, man. It's something that's generated on a computer. You know, you don't have that same emotional pop. And there's a lot of practical effects. There's CGI in here, of course, but it is majority practical. And oh, bro, it was exciting to see a man strapped to the front of a car while another car on side of it explodes. You know, it adds to the madness of this movie. The soundtrack by Junkie XL was also chaotic and just bananas crazy. That added to the tone of this movie. This movie was perfect. It had a perfect tone of craziness. You know, it was just a crazy movie that somehow worked. You know, nobody else could have pulled this off. Nobody. I don't care. Steven Spielberg couldn't pull this off. It is no way. It's no way. This movie had to be made by George Miller. And it's the same man who made Happy Feet, people. But he made this crazy bananas action masterpiece. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. This movie went on to gross $380.4 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing film in the Mad Max film franchise. It was praised by critics all over the world. It won Best Film from the National Board of Review. It was also named one of the top 10 films of 2015 by the American Film Institute. The film was nominated for not one, not two, not three, not four, but 10 Academy Awards at the 88 Academy Awards ceremony. It won 6, and it received numerous other accolades. One of the nominations, which they didn't win, but it needs to be noted, it was nominated for Best Picture of that year. It didn't win that year, of course, but it was nominated. Retrospectively, the film has been called one of the greatest action films of all time and one of the best movies of the 2010s. Mad Max Fury Road, which came out in 2015, gets a letter grade of an A+. The only way to accurately describe this film is masterpiece. Yes, there are flaws in this movie. I will openly admit there are some flaws in this movie, but they are so minute, they're so small, and I've only noticed them because I watched this movie about 10, 15 times. And so it's the only reason. The first, I don't know, 5 or 6 times I didn't even notice them. But I didn't notice them till late, and it's still minute, and it ain't even enough worth mentioning. This movie is a masterpiece. It truly is, and not too many films get the masterpiece treatment here on movie goodness. I mean, The Godfather, you know, I think that was it. It was The Godfather in this film on the only films I truly classified as masterpieces. There are others, but I haven't reviewed them yet. But those two so far here on Movie Goodness, masterpieces, which is why I am super nervous, yet super excited for Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. I am super nervous because that film has some mighty big shoes to fill. You know, following up this film, that's not easy. It's not going to be easy. But I'm excited because in my mind, I'm not expecting Fury Road. I'm not expecting to see Mad Max, because Mad Max isn't in this film, at least as far as I know. And so I'm not expecting to see that. I just want to see an epic action film from George Miller and Anya Taylor Joy, and 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 Chris Hemsworth as the villain. Yes, Thor is the villain here, so that's exciting within itself. But I'm really excited to see Anya Taylor Joy in this action film and how she's gonna hold this role. I don't know if this film is gonna be super actiony, like, if that's an actual word, like Mad Max Fury Road. But the little action that I did see in the trailers, it gets me a little excited. So we shall see. But I would like to know, what are your thoughts about the female action heroes or female action stars? Uh, who's your favorite? Is it Linda Hamilton from the Terminator franchise? Is it Sigourney Weaver from the Alien franchise? Or is it Charlize Theron? Because she's been in a few action films since Fury Road. You had Atomic Blonde, The Old Guard, and The Fast and the Furious. Well, the less said about that, the better. But that's not on her. Those films are what they are. But I would like to know, who is your favorite female action hero? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look up the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network and follow. Also, you can subscribe and like this video on YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube if you don't mind. You can also share this show. You can give this show 5 stars, likes, loves, downloads, whatever you can do on your listening platforms. If it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whichever one it is, subscribe to the KB Radio Network if you don't mind. Everybody, thank you for joining me today as we ran down just a few of the top female action heroes slash stars in cinematic history. I want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.